1 week season.
OWS fam, Sharp Football Analysis Nation. Welcome to Searching for Ceiling, presented by 1 week season and Sharp Football Analysis. This, the week 6 edition, and what an interesting slate we have set up for us this week. This is the first week where I was just talking with Rich off air. I'll use kind of his terminology. This is the first week where it feels like a normal DFS slate. And how do I say that? Because pricing is a lot tighter. There's some interesting aspects of this slate that are a trickle-down effect of that tighter pricing. We'll talk to a lot of those here shortly, but what we're getting in initial sims and optimals is we're seeing a lot or a major increase in double tight end builds. We will talk to a little bit of that. You'll get more of that in the Slate podcast on 1 week season. That is, again, behind the paywall for Inner Circle members. But if you're interested in Inner Circle, head on over to oneweekseason.com. Check out Inner Circle. That'll get you access to all the good, primarily game theory and theoretical DFS theory stuff behind that paywall. So without further ado, we will bring him in, Mr. Rich Hribar. How are we doing entering week 6, my brother?
We're doing good. We're going to try to pick up the pieces from week 5. I apologize to everyone for the Rico Dowdle gate. And just know that I did not win any money because of that too. I lost some really good lineups that I put together that just were missing the 35.4K running back. So just know that I felt it as well. So I apologize for that one. But
we were also talking before the show how I completely flipped Friday evening to Saturday morning, and I locked Rico everywhere after kind of pooping on him a little bit on our show last Friday. Again, it kind of goes to show that like my and our and kind of the DFS community's thoughts don't really round fully into form until like Friday evening, Saturday morning, maybe even Saturday
when you're building the actual lineups.
Right. So to get like access to the late week stuff, highly recommend checking out Inner Circle. The big things that I put out late week are both theory based, being the end around, which is kind of looking at the slate from a macro perspective and getting into the nitty gritty of how we kind of differentiate. And then the Slate podcast, which is our 2-hour mega podcast, which is the overall macro stuff over at 1 week season. Again, if you are interested in getting the behind the scenes of everything Rich has going on over at Sharp Football Analysis, you can still utilize code Ceiling to get access to some of the promos that they have going on over there. As for 1 week season this week, every player grid is completely free. So if you want to head over there, just make a free account at oneweekseason.com. You'll get access to all the player grids, which are top on paper plays from JM, from Mike, from Zandamir, getting all access to all of those. So go check that out. Those are completely free. All you need to do is make a free account over at oneweekseason.com. Without further ado, dude, let's check out this week 6 main slate. There are now 6 games with a game total of 46.0 and higher. And there's none that really stand out above the rest. The highest game total of the week is 49.5 with that Cowboys and Panthers game. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. But there are some games that I think are going to go relatively overlooked relative to their chances of bringing us some GPP goodness. The first one I want to talk about is probably the grossest. I want to talk about this Titans and Raiders game. I'll set the stage a little bit, and then I'll throw it over to you for your thoughts. This Raiders team continues to struggle against the deep ball, and we have a quarterback in Cam Ward that is kind of built in his DNA to be attacking deep. We finally saw a little bit of the Calvin Ridley connection last week. We have Elikio Minor. We also have a Raiders defense that is utilizing cover 3 at borderline extreme rates. And we've seen Calvin Ridley be the primary target on this Titans team against cover 3 this season. So with that, do you see the Raiders being able to push back a little bit here or the Titans being able to actually drive a game environment for once?
Yeah, we kind of have these two kind of like, bottom dwellers. So it's like, does this create a gross game environment, or is it a situation where like it's two teams playing at their proper level of competition and it ends up being kind of a fun game because they do match up? And in there are some a la carte options here. Like you just have like a pretty tightly correlated mini between Ashton Jainty and Calvin Ridley that really fits really well. that just because Ridley's one of those like great tournament plays because like if he sucks, so what? And if he hits, like he's going to hit big. Like there's probably like nowhere in between. He's going to get you the 100-yard bonus, catch a long ball. The matchups here for him, you brought up the cover 3 stuff. I mean, the Raiders are allowing wide receivers, not even just all players, just wide receivers. They have a 55% catch rate on throws 10 or more yards downfield. That's 26. They also allowed 4 touchdowns on those targets. And then on throws 20 or more yards downfield to wide receivers, only 29th in completion rate allowed. So like this is a Calvin Ridley special. Ilika Yomanor is a player like you can always kind of like dabble with, but like he has really wide splits in terms of man zone. And it makes sense because where he wins is like Cam Ward will give him shots to win 50-50 balls.
Right.
But winning those nuance types routes or beating zone, like that's not really a Yomanor's game, especially at this stage of his early career. So it would be a larger signal for Ridley. It's a really tight mini. Like I said, it just really fits. I mean, this would be an Ashton Jainty week. I think the way Geno Smith has played this opening 5 weeks, they don't want him dropping back a lot. I don't think that's really the plan. And the Titans have been so bad against the run and like dormant running games too. It's not like they've been bad against the run. Like Houston's backfield 2 weeks ago had 180 yards against them. The Arizona Cardinals backfield had 178 yards, should have had 3 touchdowns against them last week. Like, it's not like they're getting shredded by these elite running games. They've woken up some really bad running games. And we've seen Jainty get a little more usage here these last 2 weeks. It would just be a really good spot to play these 2 guys together.
Right. And we've seen Jainty struggle against teams that are not bottom of the league against the run. And we've seen him perform fairly well in the one game where he had a softer matchup. So I like this spot for Jainty. I don't know. I was just poking around at ownership earlier today. It looks like he is going to garner some ownership, but we're seeing extreme ownership congregate at the top. I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 backs that are expected to garner 20% plus ownership. Jainty is not one of those, which gives me a little bit more interest. That is also, like, from a theoretical sense, we expect people to be wanting to jam in Puka Nacua. We expect people to be wanting to jam in Christian McCaffrey. And Jainty is kind of in that sub-elite tier of player pricing. So I expect his ownership to potentially come in even lower than is being currently projected.
And in general, that pocket of running backs looks pretty hot this week.
Yeah, that sub 7K tier.
I mean, that's that right there because you have Jainty, and we'll probably talk about some of these guys, Jainty, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, Javonte Williams, like all those guys look pretty premier. Because I think the build this week, we'll see the meta build be kind of still trying to jam in one of CMC or Jonathan Taylor, although both sites got religion on Jonathan Taylor's pricing. Like he is expensive. He's 10-2 on FanDuel, like the site you would want to play him even more on. And play Rico Dowdle with one of those guys. So that we might see, especially in tournament play, that little pocket of guys that I just named. And if you have I think I missed someone too in between there, like they might be under-owned, but it might be a build where you want to get 2 of those guys in builds this week.
I concur. Maybe all the way down to Kyron Williams at 6,300, that type range. Are you at all interested? I know I've been teasing this for a long time, but are you at all interested in a potential Cam Ward at 4,600 on DK?
I don't know if it'll make my poll, but this would be a week I think that you could get by with it if you're bullish on the outcome, because we had Jalen Hurts play Thursday. We obviously don't have Lamar probably for one more week. Mahomes is on Sunday night. Josh Allen's on Monday night. Jaden Daniels on Monday night. This is a very pocket passer driven main slate.
Mm-hmm.
So it is wide open for one of the, if you run into the guy that has the 3 passing touchdowns plus at the value spot, you could get there. So I could at least see it. I don't know if I'll make my poll, but I can absolutely think this is the slate. Like for a guy like Cam Ward, if he hits, then you're ahead of the field, then he's going to offer value on this particular slate.
Yeah, I'm interested in GT. I'm interested in Calvin Ridley. I think a sprinkle of MME exposure to Mr. Cam Ward is not the worst way to go on the slate.
Should have saved him for your hammer, man.
No. We've got some fun hammers. He wouldn't make hammer status, I don't think, to me, because it's a wider range of outcomes play than I would typically like for a hammer play. I typically want a little bit more certainty, a little bit more condensed range of outcomes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that, I think he's not going to be owned. He gives you some salary relief. Within that context, he gives you the salary relief of playing Ashton Jeanty. And then we're looking for, and realistically, I'm going to talk about some theory real quick here. When you're playing these cheap plays as value, you're not looking for a 3 to 4x multiplier. You're looking for these guys to absolutely smash. So within that context, a 4.6K Cam Ward plus a 5K Calvin Ridley, 9.6K, you're realistically looking for that duo to put up 45 plus fantasy points, where you're really separating at that cost. And within that context, I think that pairing does bring that type of upside in this spot. Like you mentioned, we don't have the elite quarterbacks. We don't even have the quote unquote elite pocket passer guy in Jared Goff. Like we don't have him on the slate either. So it's really just like Baker Mayfield as like the potential pay up option at quarterback.
And I think people will get to Stafford, but there are concerns I have for Stafford even hitting that ceiling this week.
100%. That trickles down to Puka. We'll talk to that here shortly. All right. Anything else to add from this game? I'm with you. I prefer just a tight mini correlation of Ashton Jeanty and Calvin Ridley, but I think Cam Ward does work within that structure.
Yeah. I mean, where are you on the punt of Michael Mayer? Anything?
I haven't worked through that within the context of the slate. Again, speaking to the tight end position, get a little bit of macro here for you. There are so many tight end options on the slate that could put up legitimate separator scores. And then conversely speaking, there are some interesting like min pricey type salary saver. Hunter Long kind of comes to mind.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if I'll be dipping to his price tier at tight end.
This is like our first like tighter, like we've been kind of like going around this like, and remember last year the meta kind of turned into like, all right, well we know that like McBride's up top, and now you consider like Warren in that group. Now it's like, all right, the slate has McBride and Warren on it, and Jake Ferguson now, at least for another week without CeeDee Lamb.
Like there's a lot of names up there,
and then it's like, is it just like, do we pay down? Like we revert to like our old ways where we're just like, hey, a tight end, who cares? We're just going to play the cheapest dude that's on the field or not. That's why I just wanted to bring him up. Like,
yeah. I think
Titans actually have been very good against tight ends for one position. And they have faced some good dudes. Like they faced McBride last week and they faced Tyler Warren a couple weeks ago. Some of that is game script induced, but they have been good. They're 7th in yards per target, the tight ends. But he would just be like a min play anyways. But my concern would be is just I don't think the Raiders are going to have a high drop back rate in this game.
Exactly. That's my primary concern as well. We have this is interesting. We'll get some more macro thoughts. Feels like the opportunity cost of that running back and tight end. We'll get some more macro thoughts of that. We're not going to discuss that on this podcast, but you'll get that in the end around and the slate podcast tomorrow for OWS Inner Circle members. Another game that I think we need to hammer on, and this is a game that actually carries a game total of 47.5. It's going to garner some ownership, but I think we need to talk about the 49ers and the Buccaneers within this afternoon portion, late slate hammer here. I'll throw it to you to hear your thoughts. I have some thoughts as well, but how are you seeing this spot play out?
Yeah, I see this game that when we don't know, we're waiting on Juwan Jennings, who practiced yesterday. Just he's kind of like the last piece that we're waiting on. And Zion McCollum actually is kind of relevant too if he's up. It looks like Jamel Dean's going to be back, who missed last week, and the Buccaneers splits with and without Jamel Dean are pretty significant. But I do see this game with the way it lays out being kind of more of a tighter game, like maybe like low 20s, high teens. In most median outcomes, there's a path for it to get there. But my primary concerns, and there are plays in this game I do like, but my primary concern with this game is Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles loves blitzing, right? Like we know what Todd Bowles is going to do. And I worry about the 49ers being able to keep Mac Jones clean this week. The Buccaneers are blitzing 34% of the time at 6th in the NFL. And when the Buccaneers do blitz, they blitz effectively. They're getting pressures on 53% of their blitzes. That's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. Mac Jones has only been blitzed on 18% of his dropbacks, the 2nd lowest rate in the league, ahead of only one Mr. Brock Purdy. Well, Todd Bowles last year against Brock Purdy blitzed him 44% of the time. He does not care about the laws of this. Because Mac Jones has been effective, but he's faced back-to-back games against two very passive defenses against the Rams and Cardinals. That's not going to happen here. And when Mac Jones has been blitzed, again, it's a small sample, but he's 28th in completion rate, 5.1 yards per pass attempt, which is 29th, 9.5 yards per completion, which is 30th. He's 25th in yards per pass attempt when he's pressured at all. This is another game where I think it's going to be a very high dosage of Christian McCaffrey receptions, maybe some Jake Tonja stuff too, but I am genuinely concerned about the 49ers that be able to roll over some of the Mac Jones success that they've had in the box score, because he's going to have a lot more pressure and be forced to get rid of the ball a lot quicker than he has in these last two starts that he's had.
I am with you with one caveat. I think you can attack this game environment through the Buccaneers because they're expected to be so concentrated. And that kind of that discussion kind of trickles over into the 49ers. And I'm waiting to see like what Jawan Jennings ownership expectation does. I'm hoping this is a late game. I'm hoping he comes in listed questionable and gives you the ability to play him at low ownership. That seems extremely appealing to me. We've seen him kind of beat when Ricky Pearsall is expected to be out again. They have Kendrick Bourne is really the only player that the others outside of the two that you mentioned in Tongus and CMC. But we've seen like Jawan Jennings command targets in this offense when, you know, he is on the field without George Kittle, without Brandon Ayuk, which could be the case again. So I'm extremely interested in just saying he's 4,800. The ownership is expected to be extremely low. We can generate this like very tidy game stack by just saying Baker Mayfield plus Rachaad White plus Emeka Egbuka, because Chris Godwin has been ruled out. You get all the expected production from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers through that trio, bring it back with a Jawan Jennings, gives you some salary relief, gives you some ownership relief. And now we have exposure to a game where like likeliest outcome is this game is either tight or the Buccaneers are playing with a lead. And this gives you access to both of those game scripts, which are probably the two most likely game scripts there. And it gives you nice solid coverage. So I think that is the way that I'm looking at this spot. And I think we've seen both these teams kind of be not reluctant, but they have been more reactive as far as getting to what I call the oh shit factor of the game. And if they reach that kind of oh shit phase, which is all bets are off, we're through the game plan, we're through our adjustments, we have to do whatever it takes to go win this game. And again, if you're not familiar with how I kind of break that down, there's kind of three phases real quick. There's three phases of an NFL game. There's the game plan, there's the adjustment phase, and then there's the oh shit phase, I call it, which is again, all bets are off. We have to go try and win this game. With these two teams being less kind of driving their game environments and more reactive to their game environments, it's going to take something special to push this game into that oh shit phase. And I think it's likeliest to come through the Buccaneers, which is why I like stacking it up through them as opposed to going through the 49ers.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think CMC works within that structure. I think Jawan Jennings works within that structure. I think Tongus works within that structure. I just prefer the kind of salary savings of Jawan Jennings there.
Well, what about the some of the ancillary bucks then? Like obviously Rachaad White, you know. Well, it's funny because there's almost like a Spider-Man meme to this game because you have two teams that don't run the ball well but utilize their running backs in the passing game. And you have two defenses that play the run well but don't defend running backs in the passing game very well.
Right. So, and that's why it also kind of plays into the fact that like if this game reaches oh shit level, like all bets are kind of off because of the strength of each of these defenses, which is really their run defense. So
is there so like Rachaad White, does he factor into your Baker stacks, or what about Sterling Shepard as well?
I don't like Sterling Shepard as much. It's more of a MME game environment type ad only. And I prefer just tidy, like legit Baker Mayfield plus Rachaad White plus Emeka Egbuka, getting all the expected production from the Bucs and then bringing it back with Jawan Jennings is how I'm kind of seeing the spot. Anything else to add from that game? Are you interested in any of these ancillary pieces?
No, I think you can make the case for like those guys though. I'm with you. So if this game does hit like an outcome where it pops, I think it's through the Buccaneers pushing
Mm-hmm.
100%. So I would rather play it through, and like Baker just finds a way to get fantasy points. Like, and
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's through rushing, sometimes it's through like an outlier in touchdown efficiency. Sometimes he just runs pure like last week. Like he just like it's just going back now for 3 years, 3 different coordinators. Like he just finds a way to score fantasy points. It's just every week, man. Like this, like you just can't count this dude out, man. He's like fantasy Wolverine, like just like just like keeps coming back. No matter what you do, man. So, yeah, I haven't like messed around with like actual builds, but I had like both Rachaad White and Sterling Shepard as kind of like asterisks as to like to put with the Igbukah stuff.
Yeah.
Because the 49ers have been bad against running backs out of the backfield and slot receivers in particular. So, but I just haven't seen if like it's viable, like adding those guys or one necessary or two, it makes sense. But, and then obviously we're waiting to see Juwan Jennings, if he practices today.
100%.
I like that though.
Let's go to
no K Dotton.
No K Dotton. Never K Dotton. It's like, although I will add, when he has seen volume, and he must see volume. When he has seen volume, it has been when there has been really only one remaining pass catcher, whether, but dating back to the past 2 seasons, it's like either Chris Godwin or Mike Evans is like the only guy left. So massive injuries. That's kind of where this state of this team is. I don't hate it if paired with Baker. I think you could add a Cade Otton to Emeka Igbukah because you're effectively, and Baker Mayfield, because you're effectively saying like, I need yardage and touchdowns from Baker because he's not really a mobile quarterback. And in doing so, I must have Emeka Igbukah because Cade Otton is not going to pile up a ton of yardage. You're just effectively saying like, if Baker throws for 3-4 touchdowns, potentially 1 or 2 of those go to Cade Otton, and that's where he would be viable on a slate like this. So I don't hate it. It would be instead of Rachaad White because you're effectively saying that the touchdowns don't go to him, which I think is fine in MME. All right. I want to go to another potentially gross spot. And I say gross because it does not carry a high game total. But there are some unique aspects of this Cincinnati Bengals and Green Bay Packers game that we should talk through real quick here. I'll set the stage again, and then I'll throw it to you. I think the talk of the fantasy/DFS community this week is going to be surrounding Joe Flacco and his potential decrease in upside. I have 2 things to say about that. If I were to pick an offense to come in and learn on a short week and just go YOLO play, it would be this Cincinnati Bengals offense. This is very vanilla. It is effectively generating one-on-one situations for their playmakers to go win against. They are not doing things to generate space for their guys. They are not looking to have all these unique route structures to generate space. They're just saying, I'm going to go generate one-on-one situations. You guys are going to go win. We talked about Jamar Chase last week in the context of that game where like we were kind of on that in that spot. Yeah. I think this is another spot to potentially be on that. This Packers defense is extremely, well, I don't want to use the word conservative because they're not necessarily conservative, but they play within structure. They're not necessarily going out to manipulate their defensive tendencies based on the opponent. So now we have this more, and I don't even want to use vanilla, but it's a more straight up type defense. They know what they are getting here as far as the Bengals are concerned. Conversely speaking, the Bengals are a straight up offense. So when we get this like meeting of the minds here of like 2 straight up teams coming together, I think there is an upside case to be made for this Bengals team. The second thing I'll add for Joe Flacco, specifically speaking to him, is we saw this season Joe Flacco be more of a game manager, which is kind of gross to think, in Cleveland, where they know the strengths of their team is their defense. They're going dinking and dunking, trying to put together drives, manage the game. And that's where we saw like low ADOT. That's where we saw this kind of Joe Flacco game manager come into play. That is not who the Bengals are. And the Bengals kind of, to me, Zach Taylor was losing the locker room. We saw them kind of quit, quote unquote, in 2 consecutive games. So going out and getting Joe Flacco is like the shot of adrenaline for this team trying to save their season. And I think actually Mike brought up an interesting point when we were talking earlier this week, in the sense that like the Bengals are not out of it. Like this division is relatively wide open. You have
they believe that. They definitely believe that.
You've got a reeling Ravens team who's been without Lamar Jackson. You have a Steelers team that really doesn't know who they are. Their identity has been all over the place. There's nobody that is running away with this division. So if the Bengals are looking for that shot of adrenaline, they're looking to bring in Joe Flacco to, ebb the flow of Jake Browning here, looking to turn their season around. Like, I think they go out and just let Joe be Gunslinger Joe here. All right, that's kind of set the stage. How are you seeing this spot? What do you think of some of these skill position players?
I definitely believe that's the actual like top down philosophy, is that they did bring in Joe Flacco just to come out and just throw the ball around.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is the spot where it's going to be necessarily effective, just because of the respect I have for this Packers defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this, I mean, the pass rush here is going to be, they're coming out of bye. Pass rush is extreme. They've really only played one bad quarter of defensive football, or like a half of bad defensive football. So I still believe that this is one of the best top-down defensive units in the NFL. They obviously, Flacco's seen him 3 weeks ago, so maybe that helps.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. But I mean, they were just in his pocket though. He's been so bad under pressure, which I still think they're going to get a massive amount of pressure in this game. I was on Jamar Chase last week. I have a hard time getting there this week, but I mean, if they're going to hit, it's going to be big. I'm much more interested in like the way to play, the dynamics of playing through the Packers side, right? Because the Packers are a team that have the highest team total on the main slate.
Mm-hmm.
They're the hugest favorites. They're getting Aaron Banks and Zach Tom back out of the bye, which is huge. Because for this matchup, so right now, Jordan Love, 4th in the NFL in yards per pass attempt, 6th in touchdown rate. This is while being pressured at the 6th highest rate in the NFL. When Jordan Love, from a clean pocket this year, which has only been 60% of his dropbacks, leads the NFL in completion rate, 87%. Leads the NFL in yards per pass attempt, 10.7 yards per pass attempt. He's 3rd in touchdown rate, 10.3%. Again, getting 2 starting offensive linemen back, one who is excellent in pass protection, Zach Tom. And then to double down on all those clean pocket stats, guess who doesn't rush the passer? The Cincinnati Bengals. They're 27th in pressure rate. They're 20th in sack rate. When the Bengals don't get pressure on the opposing quarterback, they're 24th in yards per pass attempt, 23rd in touchdown rate. Now, do the Packers, as 15-point, they're road favorites, but is this game in Lambeau? No, yeah, it is in Green Bay. I'm sorry. Do they do the thing where they turtle? Like, because we've seen this with the Packers. They build a lead and then they just will ride Josh Jacobs for the rest of the game. So, because I really want to play Jordan Love. And it's like, man, are people also scared of the turtling factor of, the Packers just doing, is it just a Josh Jacobs second half? Because they're dead last in the NFL in dropback rate in the second half of games. But this is a game where the Packers should be able to absolutely shred the Bengals through the air for as much as they're willing to. So it's just how many dropbacks do we get? Says Jordan Love, Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft. Want to play all of these guys for the upside outcome, but do we get the rug pulled on us?
So let me talk structurally about who this Bengals defense is real quick and how I see that production likeliest flowing from the Packers. And then a follow-on idea of how I think you can game stack this profitably. First, the Bengals are allowing the second fewest fantasy points on throws 20-plus yards down the field, and that's just because of the structure of their defense. They are a heavy zone defense, and they want to keep things in front of them and force teams to kind of work the intermediate areas of the field. So first, to me, Tucker Kraft jumps off the page. This is one of the more optimal spots for Tucker Kraft explosion, where they have a Bengals defense that has not been as disciplined on the back end. They're giving up yak. So enter like yak god Tucker Kraft. This is the spot for me. So I think yardage, we could see a Tucker Kraft game. And again, this does kind of fit within your explanation of, we might not get the volume from Jordan Love. We've seen this Packers team, and that I'm kind of jumping all over here, but like that also goes into the fact that the Packers have been this like shell, and I hate to compare teams, but they give me a lot of vibes of like the Arizona Cardinals, where like if they get a lead, they're just going to sit back and they're going to make you do everything underneath and force teams to string together drives against them. Within that structure, I think Tucker Kraft brings, potential for elite efficiency on 6 to 8 targets. If he finds the end zone, that's a fantastic outcome for his potential ceiling here. On the other side of that equation, we should expect Josh Jacobs to be that like hammer, second half hammer type play. So I think a very, very efficient way of attacking this game this week is through the Packers without Jordan Love. And this is something that probably the field is not going to fully get to. Something like Josh Jacobs plus Jake Ferguson. On the opposite side of that spot, when the Packers kind of go into their shell, which we expect them to do if they're playing with a large lead in the second half, they're going to force things underneath. They're going to make teams string together drives. I think the upside is there now, as we've talked about in previous weeks. We saw it last week in the second half against a soft shell. Jamar Chase is a big part of this short area passing game through the structure of this offense again. So I really like attacking this game through the Packers without Jordan Love, bringing it back with Joe Flacco for that garbage time sprinkles, and hitting it with Jamar Chase. I think you can profitably do so with Joe Flacco skinnies with Jamar Chase only. I also like the potential of adding T. Higgins to this equation. If this is a game, and we've seen Joe Flacco be capable of it, we've seen the Bengals be capable of it. If this is a game where they're like, Joe, you're just going to see 45 plus pass attempts, we should expect the bulk of that aerial production to flow through those two primary guys. So I don't hate Joe Flacco plus Jamar Chase plus T. Higgins plus Josh Jacobs plus Tucker Kraft here. And just saying, like, if this game environment reaches outlier type range, that's the avenues of the likeliest production. That was a lot. that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think that you need to go to this game for one-offs. If you do, Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft are probably the safest bets, but the field probably isn't going to this game environment as a potential eruption spot. So I like doing so. Any thoughts on that?
No, just listen, you are the Joe Flacco kind of whisperer. So like you love the go to Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe, dude. And he fits within the context of the slate where, like you said, we don't have a ton of elite quarterbacks on the slate. Like if Baker Mayfield does not put the slate out of reach, some of these lower priced guys, and I'll talk to another one here that's kind of vomit inducing, but some of these low priced guys putting up 27, 28 fantasy points could be a tournament type winner score where you're getting value in places the field probably isn't getting to. All right. There's one more game within that structure of the state of the slate that we need to talk about. And then I'll throw it to you to see if you have any other game environments you want to be attacking here. But I think we have to talk about the Cowboys and the Panthers. Now, the spot isn't going to be sneaky at all, but I think there are sneaky ways to play this game that the field probably isn't getting to. So with that table set, what are you seeing from this game as far as game environment goes?
Yeah, I mean, all the Cowboys. It's another one of those. Do you have the Cowboy you like? He's probably going to be pretty good here.
Yeah.
I mean, Dak is a big standout here. The opening of the season for the Panthers, I was like, oh, like, is this pass defense kind of okay? And then the last few weeks, Drake May and Tua both score over 20 fantasy points against them. It's like, okay, we're safe.
Yeah. I have a theory of why that is. Like, they're a more vanilla defense. And
we know what
we've seen Ejiro Evero is going to do. He's just going to play cover 3, and he's like going to be kind of static within that structure. So, I think that's why we've seen that. And I think that's easy to attack here for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I guess who is absolutely eviscerated cover 3 to open the year.
There's two. Jake Ferguson and Jesus Christ, what's his name?
Dak is third in the NFL in quarterback rating against cover 3. He leads the NFL in touchdown passing against cover 3. Leads the NFL in completion rate against cover 3.
And where's that production going? It's very clear. It's like George Pickens has elite yards per route run. Jake Ferguson has elite targets per route run against cover 3 this season.
Yeah. Jake Ferguson has 31% of the team targets. All of his touchdowns this year against cover 3. Carolina's also been tormented by tight ends. We have one more week. Lamb was practicing, but they already said he's targeting next week.
Right.
To return. So we have one more week where it's Pickens and Ferguson. I will say, if you want to chase the Flanoy stuff, keep in mind that two things. One is the Jets, who I've been rating up the Jets every year as a team we want to target for wide receiver 2 production, because they're using Sauce Gardner to shadow the opposing wide receiver 1, and their backup cornerbacks, Brandon Stevens, they're a target for wide receiver 2s. Also, George Pickens, as a byproduct of that, what happened? He only had 4 targets last week. So when you look at Flanoy, because Turpin doesn't look like he's going to be up again. So Flanoy still ran fewer routes than Tolbert, and a lot of his targets came because as a byproduct of the Sauce Gardner shadow coverage, which we're not going to get here. We're going to get a lot of that cover 3 static look. So I think going back to Pickens and going back to Jake Ferguson just makes a ton of sense. And then you have a great spot for Javonte Williams again, who's been absolutely awesome to open the year. So it's really kind of all the core Cowboys. It's not a cheap stack though, especially in a tighter pricing week. I'm trying to think of what I wrote it up as a stack perspective. The double is 37% of your salary on DraftKings and 37.5% on FanDuel. So it is a costly DAC double if you do want to go to it.
I have an interesting stat poll that I pulled this week. Javonte Williams is currently averaging more yards per carry than any Dallas running back in the history of their franchise, dating back to 1960.
Incredible.
That's Murray. That's prime Zeke. That's
Emmett.
Tony Pollard, Emmitt Smith. That's a real stat.
Tony Dorsett.
Yes, dude. Back to 1960. So, is that likely to hold? He's got to make it above 5.5. He's at 5.7 currently. Murray put up 5.5 one year. Is that likely to hold? Probably not. But that's what Javonte Williams is bringing to the table for this team this year. I thought coming into this season that this Cowboys team would be one-dimensional, that Dak Prescott had a path to lead the league in pass attempts. And while that might still be the case because their defense is so bad, Javonte Williams is legitimately giving this offense some structure, which we did not think coming into the season. So interesting spot. I think I'm with you on Flournoy. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm not buying into that game from last week. I think you just stick to the 3 primary guys, the trio, as you mentioned. I think you can play 2 of these guys with or without Dak within the structure of a game environment bet here. If you're playing it without Dak, I think you should have interest in Bryce Young on the other side. And I think any Bryce Young exposure has to be paired with Tet McMillan. I think you can add Rico to that equation in the hashtag revenge narrative game. I think you can play Rico by himself, because with Bryce Young, he has been a legitimate bottom 3 passer in the NFL this season. So if he is hitting the yardage that you need from him, it has to be through his primary option, who also happens to be their primary downfield guy. So, I'm interested in Bryce Young. I'm interested in Tet McMillan paired with that. I'm interested in Rico Dowdle with or without those 2. And then I'm interested in the primary trio on the other side as well.
I'm a little more concerned about this game being the game, and obviously I will probably play it just because Rico, the way that, Rico's tracking to be the most popular play on the slate. So I probably will at least do one large field MME, Panthers passing stack, but I'm very concerned about this spot for them for a couple reasons. Well, one, the Cowboys have really been getting a pass rush the past few weeks. I believe they will be able to get a pass rush against this Carolina offensive line. And then the zone coverage stuff, it's structurally not set up for Bryce Young to, I think, pop. Matt Eberflus to play. He wants you to throw. This is why Justin Fields struggled last week against them for 3 quarters, and then you had the
I don't want to talk
bailout
about that either.
But Bryce Young has been absolutely horrendous against zone coverage,
bottom 2 in most metrics.
Yeah, I mean he's averaging 5.4 yards per pass, and he has 1 touchdown pass, 4 interceptions against zone coverage. And like as a byproduct, like we've seen this bleed over into Tet McMillan. So far, Tet McMillan has a 37.8% target rate against man coverage. It goes down to 21.5% against zone coverage. Obviously, we know Dallas, fourth highest rate zone. We talk about the Everflow stuff. The other thing too is they're not using Tet McMillan near the end zone. Like Carolina has 27 red zone passes. 5 have gone to Tet McMillan. They've thrown 11 passes into the end zone. 2 have gone to Tet McMillan. I think this could be more of a spot where it's a Cowboys route than a good game environment.
I'd buy that. What do you make of Jalen Coker potentially coming back off of IR?
Yeah, just waiting to see like what happens to him. I mean, he's a guy that's missed so much time that I wouldn't be like excited to fully play him, but he was kind of more of like a guy that can move inside outside. So I'm definitely scared because I know a lot of people, and like I said, I'm going to at least make one for this game environment to hit, and because Dowdle's projected ownership, 1 MME. Build around the Panthers stacking passing game, but I am genuinely concerned that this is a spot that's going to be overowned for Tet McMillan because we're martingaling his breakout.
The final question I'll throw to you is, what do you make? You mentioned the red zone, the end zone work. A lot of that has gone to just the Panthers tight end position.
Yeah.
Which is Davian Sanders coming back. Any interest there?
Not really, because it's still like he's not like you just have to have a touchdown, and like we just brought up some of the other guys like in that price range, right? Like we've got Mayer. If you want a full punt, you can play Hunter Long. I think David Njoku's price is ludicrous on DraftKings, but so like it's one of those ones. I want to play Kraft if I'm paying, or Jake Ferguson if I'm paying, and then my mid range guys Njoku, and then if I'm gonna punt, I'm probably just gonna do it with one of the other guys like Mayer or Long.
Yeah, and I will add to that equation. I mean, Tyler Warren has a fantastic structural matchup against the Cardinals. Not seeing the volume as compared to some of these other guys that we talked about, primarily Jake Ferguson, but does have.
Well, it's because the Colts are one of these teams that just they shut it down. Like it's in the second half, and like we're their 7-point favorites, so we worry about the pass volume. That could happen to Kraft and stuff too, but
yeah.
I'm less worried about it for Kraft, like for all the reasons you mentioned. Like he's just such a yak god. Like he makes 7 targets work, where Tyler Warren on 7 targets is still solid, but like he's it's more of it's not the hyper efficiency.
And Tucker Kraft's ADOT is already top 5 in the league. Tyler Warren's is kind of middle of the pack there, kind of structural tight end type ADOT. So
I have the stat in the worksheet this week. Yeah, Daniel Jones is number 1 in fantasy points in the first half this season, and then he's 23rd in second half fantasy points. I mean, they threw 5 passes in the second half last week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I will throw it over to you. Are there any other game environments you want to make sure we talk about before we get into our hidden hammers here?
I think we got to do Seahawks Jags, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got a solid team total here. We have 2 competitive teams too, right? Like this was the one thing that we talked about, like Bucks Seahawks last week, is like you've got 2 teams that are capable, and then when you start to have cluster injuries and moving parts, like this is how you can have upside too. And I think this game still has it. We do have to follow the injury report for Seattle on this Friday. We're in the afternoon, and we won't have that until later. But they were already without 3 core starters last week in DeMarcus Lawrence, Devin Witherspoon, and Julian Love. They lose Reek Witherspoon in game. They lose Derek Hall in game. Derek Hall's going to miss multiple weeks. We'll see if the other 4 guys come back, because if not, then that opens up some upside. We also have this weird musical chairs trade that the Jaguars made with Greg Newsome and Tyson Campbell midweek. How is Tyson Campbell 4 days out going to or Greg Newsome 4 days out going to be acclimated to the scheme here? And we have this Brenton Strange injury on the Jaguar side. So a lot of fun moving pieces here in this game. The main thing that sticks out to me is not actually related to the Seattle injury side yet, or the Brenton Strange injury. And it's just that Sam Darnold splits with the play action pass game, and where the Jaguars are getting kind of flooded in the play action passing game stands out to me a lot. Sam Darnold leads the NFL in yards per pass attempt off play action, leads the NFL with 19 yards per completion on play action passes. We already said this is a very pocket passer driven slate anyways. Jaguars on non-play action passes, 8th in the NFL in yards per pass attempt, 4th in completion rate allowed. But against the play action pass, they go 22nd in completion rate, 20th in yards per pass attempt allowed. we already know where the ball's going here. It's easy to stack them with Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then we kind of have the bring back side stuff that we can get into. But I already talked about like the Brenton Strange pushing some stuff to potentially Brian Thomas Jr. against these injuries. And then we've already seen the Jaguars allow some big games. So I really like a Darnold, JSN, Brian Thomas stack here.
The one thing I'll add to that exploration here is Tyson Campbell had given up the second most yards in coverage of any cornerback this season. A lot of that coming on the play action stuff where he was kind of island. Because you talk about the back end, what it does when you see play action. You typically have safeties cheating up. You have linebackers cheating up. That typically leaves kind of isolated coverage on the perimeter. And that's where Tyson Campbell was just getting absolutely roasted. So in the structure of this team, like, the Jaguars have been not great on offense this season. Trevor Lawrence has been not great at all. Borderline atrocious at times. He's had some like spurts where we've seen some of the magic come out. Saw a little bit of that on their final drive last week. But overall, like
two his best throws all year, like those two throws.
Exactly. And like people will talk to the rushing stuff. That was some of the weirdest rushing production I've ever seen from.
Oh yeah, we're not chasing that.
That was insane. Falling down, not being touched, getting up, gonna throw the ball away, and then like it's like, oh, I can like make the end zone. Let's do that. That was a bizarre play, but all of that to say, like, the strength of this Jaguars team has been their aggression on defense. They are first in the league in takeaways. They are first in the league in turnover differential. And we have a Seattle team that has been kind of Jekyll Hyde as far as turnovers. And they have 8 giveaways this season, which is bottom 5 in the league. So to me, the primary deciding factor of this game is probably going to be that turnover battle between this Jags defense and the Seattle offense. They do. They keep getting away with it. This is one of the weirder 4-1 teams that I can remember in recent history, this Jaguars team. They're coming off the big win against the Chiefs, but like, this is not like, they are not there offensively yet. So
it reminded me of that Steelers team that started 11-0. Do you remember that a couple years ago?
Yeah.
The Ben Roethlisberger, it was like one of Ben Roethlisberger, but like it was like complete like kind of smoke and mirror stuff. They were just getting so many turnovers. And it was just like it reminds me of that.
That's this team this year. Like I called 2 weeks ago, I called the Chiefs, the Eagles they were not a 4-0 team. They shouldn't have been 4-0, and then they proceed to lose the next 2 games. I'm kind of getting the same vibes for this Jaguars team where it's like this team probably shouldn't be 4-1. But it's kind of comes down to like their defense's ability to generate that disruption and generate those turnovers, which I think is going to be a key aspect of this matchup. So for that reason, I see more paths to failure for this game environment than I did last week with the Seattle Seahawks game. So I think I will probably personally be underweight this matchup. That's kind of how I'm seeing things. And I think it all comes down
to about because we know we got 10 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we've all wanted to jam Puka Nacua in whenever we could. Is Puka Nacua at his salary bump on a tighter slate? Should he have triple the amount of projected ownership than JSN in a spot where we are probably going to have more dropbacks for Seattle than we've had? Because we did see like all the elite efficiency stuff really show ceiling when JSN was not running 20 routes a game. If we get him running 30 to 35 routes, I kind of think JSN, and I'll probably eat these words. It'll probably look stupid in hindsight, but I think JSN at his projected ownership versus Puka Nacua is actually an outright better play.
So this is a very slippery slope to get down to. And
correct.
I want to phrase this discussion within the context of the slate. And I want to do so from a theoretical lens real quick. I'm going to get a little theory for you before we talk about the slate and my end around. When we look at the context of this slate, the field is going to lack certainty. And when that happens, because we don't have the game environments we want to be talking about, we don't have like the team environments where it is like a no shitter, like a can't miss spot. When that happens, the field is going to latch onto the spots where there is the most certainty. Those 2 spots this week are very clearly like Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey. When that happens, the field is going to get into this binary mindset where it's like, I must play one of those guys, or I must account for one of those guys, or I must fade those guys because it's DFS and weird shit happens on the football field. I would caution against thinking in a binary frame of mind when we're talking about specifically Puka Nacua versus JSN. Instead, like, I want to direct the mind to think about game environments when we have a slate like this, because if we say I need to account for Puka Nacua CMC, JSN is a very natural pivot to that structure, we get down this binary mindset where it's ones and zeros, where if you're thinking in that framework of the slate, you're effectively placing a bet that no game environment goes off. And now we're into onesie twosie player discussions and comparisons. It is very unlikely that on a slate, even 10, 11 game slate, a smaller slate, it is very unlikely that a game environment does not go into 90, 95, 99% outcome territory. If you are talking about just simply comparing CMC, Puka Nacua, JSN, Jonathan Taylor, some of these other like higher certainty bets, you're effectively placing a bet that no game environment goes off. So switching that mindset to say CMC is a great play on paper this week. Puka Nacua is a great play on paper this week. JSN is a great play on paper this week that just needs the bump in volume because the Seattle Seahawks are 31st in pass attempts per game, but his underlying metrics are in line with like Puka Nacua. He is the only guy that is matching the underlying metrics of Puka Nacua this season. So within that structure of just saying like, these guys are great on paper plays, I don't need to say I'm going to go all in. I don't need to say I'm going to complete fade. I don't need to say like JSN makes a good pivot away from those guys, and just say like, can these guys work within the structure of other game environment bets I'm playing this week? 100%. Can they work within the structure of their own game environments? 100%. So I just wanted to throw that like discussion, just theoretical discussion, I think, fit it in there real quick before we get into our hidden hammers. And that's kind of how I'm seeing the state of the slate is like kind of plays into that. Like the field is going to lack certainty. They're going to go to the higher certainty plays. JSN fits that bill. CMC fits that bill. Puka Nacua fits that bill. But thinking 2-3 layers beyond that is kind of how we're going to find success on a slate like this. That was a lot. Anything to say to that kind of exploration, like theoretical discussion, we'll say?
No, I think that was well. No, I think it was well articulated. That's just not as easy as just the 1v1. You know, it's kind of as I laid out of why I was more attracted to kind of probably, you know, JSN being more, because I mean, I think you do have to choose this week though, in terms of, and you know, because you can't cover for everything. Like you can't say, oh, well, I'm going to build the Jonathan Taylor lineup. I'm going to build the CMC lineup. I'm going to build the Puka Nacua lineup, right? Like, because like that's where you just start to like spread yourself out, and like that type of stuff never works out in DFS. Like, you know, you want to keep a tighter pull. The biggest mistake, obviously, the most gamers make is trying to cover too many angles, because you can't cover it's just impossible to cover everything. So you have to make like some of the bets that like you believe that are going against like where the field is going, right? Like if you want to win large field in tournaments, and you know have your strong bets on that. So if we get the Sunday still, and it is like, hey, Puka is triple the projected ownership, like, you know, then I'll still feel good about it. But I like that you put it out saying it's like, it's not necessarily just the 1v1, but I do think that these 5 weeks and the way everyone's played it is still everyone is so indoctrinated into saying like, I have to get one of these guys in my lineup every week. And I actually think that this slate, you necessarily don't need any of the three. Like, I think you can make a pretty strong case that you will look back on this from 10,000 feet out and say like, we didn't need to pay that premium of $1 for any of those guys, because I think that the tiers below those guys are so strong this week too, where those guys can actually prevent you from some of those stronger plays on the slate.
100%. Let's get into our hidden hammers here. I'll throw it to you. I'm not going to say you probably won't get mine, because you probably won't get mine. But I'll throw it to you first. What hidden hammers, if any, do you have that we have not talked about so far?
My guy this week is Rashid Shaheed for the hidden hammer. You know, we play in a game where we're probably going to see Chris Olave get a lot of cash game ownership and core ownership because of his price and volume. But Rashid Shaheed is the hammer for this matchup. You know, the
same
Patriots,
as last week.
Yeah, again, we always want to target Shaheed against like these heavy man coverage teams. Obviously, the Patriots give up a lot of huge plays. They're 31st in explosive pass rate allowed. Looks like Christian Gonzalez had a re-aggravation of his hamstring injury too, and is kind of questionable. Yeah, he's questionable to play now. Patriots are playing man coverage on 35% of their dropbacks. That's 6th in the NFL. It actually it was that way before Christian Gonzalez came back too. Against man coverage, Rashid Shaheed, 36% target rate per route run compared to 12.5% against zone coverage. So I like Rashid Shaheed as my guy to bring along with your chalky Drake May, Stephon Diggs stacks. I also think Juwan Johnson's a sneaky good play again in that game too.
What about Taysom, dude? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Well, listen, if Alvin Kamara doesn't play, people are going to be playing Taysom.
Taysom saw 9 snaps last week. He touched the football 6 times.
Yep.
He had 5 carries and a pass attempt. Or was it 6 carries and a pass attempt? I think it might have been 6 carries and a pass attempt. But yeah, so Shaheed is in a very interesting spot, similar to last week, in that Spencer Rattler is actually throwing deep against man coverage this season. I talked about it on the Slate podcast last week, where Shaheed was one of my favorite sneaky options. And I paired that with Spencer Rattler. That was looking so good through 2.5 quarters. And then the 5 consecutive turnovers from the Giants just pissed me off. But yeah, I laddered Shaheed's receiving yards too. I took him over 100. So that was fun to hit on 3 targets or through his first 3 receptions. So I liked that spot last week. I think it's very similar this week, where this team actually is attempting downfield passing against man coverage, and they're going to see that a lot this week. Love that shout. My hidden hammer for the week is Quinshon Judkins. I don't know where his ownership is going to land, but he's bound to be far lower owned than some of these other guys, particularly in his price range, with Rico Dowdle there, with Rachaad White there, with Kyron Williams there, Javonte Williams there. There's all these guys where I think Quinshon Judkins is going to go pretty overlooked on this slate. We look at his previous performances. This guy's seen 25 opportunities in consecutive weeks, and both of them have been in highly negative game environments. A 10-34 loss to the Lions, a 17-21 loss to the Vikings, and both of those games in quote unquote rushing matchups for this Browns team. But they've just showed us that they're just going to continue to ride Quinshon Judkins, particularly with a rookie quarterback under center. So against the Steelers defense that we just talked about, they're still struggling to find their identity, and that extends to their defense, which has not been the case in recent history for the Steelers team. I think we're going to see 22 to 26 opportunities for Judkins again. And that probably ranks among the top 3 or 4 running backs on the slate. So love him for the leverage, love him for the potential workload here.
Yeah, and the Browns are live. I know they are 5.5-point dogs, and the Steelers are getting some defensive players back off of bye week. There's a reason that they are favored. But I mean, I could see this game being a lot tighter because, Dylan Gabriel, his play style is designed to kind of play tight games. And we know the Steelers aren't going to run away either. This game is going to have no downfield passing, zero downfield passing. So a lot of short throws in this game. It's probably going to be a tight game, probably a lot of opportunities for Judkins, like you said. So if you can get him into the box multiple times, he can get there.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is dead last in average intended air yards this season of quarterbacks who have started 4 or more games. So that is, like you said, probably not a lot of downfield shots. This game is probably going to play closer than the spread implies. So yeah, Quinshon Judkins, man, I'll be looking for ways to play him this week.
It could also be one of those games, even if the Steelers cover, it could be in one of those fashions that's 17-10 or 20-13 or something like that, where it still is just tight.
Yeah, and I think Judkins brings paths to what we're looking for at running back this year, which is pretty much anybody not named Devon Achane or Christian McCaffrey needs 102. So he brings that type of upside here. Sweet, man. Any other parting shots as we round it out here?
Nope. That's it. Looking forward to this slate, though.
Again, you can head on over to Sharp Football and check out all of Rich's work. You can use code Ceiling for a little discount on some of the stuff they got going on over there. You can head on over to oneweekseason.com and sign up for a free membership. Get all of the player grids completely free this week. And until next week, you all, we will see you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.
1 week season.